From the sun and stars to the earth and planets, galaxies and all, the universe is a collective engine of various and disparate realms, all with their own environments and tendencies and conditions, moving through time-space. And now we have begun to identify realms, quote unquote. Realms as in the perceptions of the mind itself, or of actual physical spaces. Is there actually a difference? Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. We are continuing with the forward in the online book that I've provided in the ebooks page on threefoldlotus.com. Also available in print. The 3,000 realms is something that we discuss often. We run into that term quite often in Nichiren. And if you research Tendai or Dengyo or Miaolo, it will come up. It has little variations in wording, translation, and we've even discussed Nichiren's conceptualization of the 3,000 realms in a single thought moment as both Ichen and Sanzen, the moment-to-moment process of energies amalgamating to get us to where we are in this moment, in this moment, in this moment. And also from the standpoint of realizing that activity in ourselves and our environment all happening through this momentum of energies of life, of the universe, the engine of life, as I call it. Nichiren calls the perception of that the pathway in the mind to open that perceptive window as GoHonzon. Okay? Continuing with my my forward here, realms are particular containers, if you will, as they're identified in Buddhist teachings, right? Environments of tendencies and conditions manifesting with their own momentum, timelines, if you will. Realms exist from moment to moment, as I said, of their own kinetics, and that's important, but also constantly interact with infinite other realms to further amalgamate into more complex realms or dissolve into less interactive realms. You could say that the universe and all life within it is a massive, roiling, and expanding mass of endless instantiations of realms interacting to produce ever greater realms. Now, does this echo something else that you've read or discussed? Right? We get exposed, especially in Nichiren, to the 10 worlds, 10 realms, quite often. It comes up early in Nichiren doctrine, right? But Nichiren didn't invent it. It's Shakyamuni's teaching. And it's exactly this. If you take the same idea of the 10 realms interpenetrating, the idea that we're moving constantly through all of these different momentums, energies, just expand that to 3,000. The whole idea, and this happens a lot in Buddhism, is to take an experience, an observation, and drill into it to the point where it breaks the brain. It breaks the conceptual envelope of understanding. Not because the point is to break the brain. The point is to break our attachment, our hold, our samsaric mental device of constantly quantifying and hanging on to something as though now I know what that is. Now I own it. Intellectually, physically, I own it. I have it. Now here it is under my arm. Let's go. That is the primary fallacy Buddhism is constantly attacking, constantly demonstrating how fallible and foolish it is. Because nothing exists that way. Nothing. Not even the air that you breathe. Everything is constantly in flux, changing, developing, altering, dissolving, reinstantiating. Your own body is doing that, right? But we don't, our samsaric mind doesn't want to bother with that. It's more interested in collecting, owning, building that warehouse of data, identification. It's how we construct our idea of a self. Right? That whole statement about I think, therefore I am, it's a very samsaric thing to say. That because I can collect data, I exist, is very limiting. Thousands of years before that was said, Shakyamuni was saying it, identifying that as the very cause of anxiety, stress, quote, suffering, yeah? It's not that it's not useful to identify things. Certainly in samsara, it has a purpose. You need to know that some things are edible and some things are not. You need to know this. But that's very rudimentary, get along through physical life. Your happiness, your stress, your full experience of potential in life, that's not a physical thing. That's a mental thing. That's an attitude and intent thing. And this is what Buddhism is about. Let's see. Where do I continue here? At this point, it should come as no surprise that we, you and I, are each a construct of immeasurable amalgams of energies and represent massive collections of realms, the realms of the liver function. Don't think physical, think function. Realms, they're functions, they're realms of function. And we move through them very fluidly, many at a single moment, constantly developing from those realms, newer realms, reinstantiation of realms, adding new combinations. This is the engine of life. Namo Myo Renge Kyo. As well as a surrounding or constructed super realm we think of as a self. But it's not a permanent thing. It's an active momentum of constantly roiling, just like the universe. Once we understand the self to be a massive collection of interacting influences, we begin to perceive the true nature of our constantly modifying and shifting self, rather than the illusion that we are particular and unchanging self. This idea is critical to the study and insight of Buddhism. We're looking under the hood, as it were. So, again, in this book on the 3,000 Realms, I dig into this a little bit to, you see where there's a paradigm shift, really, of the way we think, or how we think. I'll go on talking about this. The mind then becomes the thing that contains or manifests consciousness as the facility with... Right. So this, that's an important part, actually, but I've talked about it so many times. It is in this book, so know that the whole idea that we have an interactive, influential role in this momentum is only because we've emerged a sentient mind. Without the sentient mind, all of this just happens, right? No good, no bad. It just does what it does. Life gonna life, in modern parlance, yeah? So you see, if you understand that, and that's a key point actually, then your whole idea of self and how you feel, emotions, attachments, all of it, that's all in your mind. Everything else is just doing what it does. Once again, attitude and intent. How do you perceive this momentum of life from your vantage point? And why? Or how? Right? The Buddhist might ask, I'm so sad, I'm suffering. Not why are you sad, why are you suffering, but why are you focused on something that isn't real? You're making yourself suffer. You're saying, I got my leg amputated. I'm sad. I'm struggling. Understand. It's just like addiction. And I know that raises a lot of eyebrows out there. But addiction is a decision. I'll stand by that till I die. It's a mental condition. And mental conditions are fluid. And you are in control of them. Whether you want to accept that responsibility, that's a whole other thing. Yes, there are medical implications. Yes, you get your leg amputated. Yes, that's real. But we're not talking about that in Buddhism. We're talking about attitude and intent. How do you deal with that? You're in control. Ultimately, nobody else can do it for you. Just like enlightenment. Yeah, that's hardcore. It's pretty strict. But it's a fact. No one else is responsible for your thoughts and attitudes, especially as relates to yourself and what doesn't. Although Buddhism does a deep dissection of this aspect of mind, identifying no less than 8 separate realms of consciousness, there's the realms again. It's important to understand everything is a realm. Like I've talked about before, I'm not angry. There is anger. I am manifesting it. Why? Why am I doing that to myself? It's a different perspective, isn't it? And it forces you to really look at what it is your monkey mind is doing. And then you can wrest control back to steward the ship, to captain the ship, yeah? The objective for emancipation, identified so early on by Shakyamuni's teachings, is to found much prior to the establishment of this complex matrix of identification and information gathering for personal consumption and ownership, the construction of the database or the warehouse. All this analysis simply serves to well describe the samsaric problem. No, what is needed is a priori, a fundament or initial conditions, a starting point from which all others emanate or propagate. This condition must be within the realm of the formations and therefore instantiated from the very quiescence that provides the opportunity for the formations. And this is where Buddhism starts to talk about time without beginning, because time itself is an instantiation. That's what we identify in science about this universe. Right? It used to be called the Big Bang. Now they're shifting about, well, it took place over, and there was this huge expansion, and Big Bang is kind of we can argue over words all day long. It doesn't really matter what you call it. The idea is to recognize that energy formations form. that's happening all the time. It didn't start 14 billion years ago. We have evidence of it being that old in a process, but it's happening moment to moment. Our attachment to that history is an attachment. It isn't relevant. What's relevant is what's happening with all of it now. Now, this moment. This brings back karma as the instigator of formations, right? What is karma? It's energy plus work, energy plus action. It's some affect, I don't want to say disturbance because that has charisma to it too, but this agitation in energy that manifests form, various forms, constantly. Realms are a way of conceptualizing the tendencies and conditions, the expressions of differing states of energy. Buddhism supplies a ready array of words, terms, adjectives to describe general parameters of realms like hell, rapture, learning, animality, hunger. But realms can also be much more subtle and much more powerfully multi-layered. So hopefully that's come across in all of this, right? So then I enter the 100 realms or worlds. And I've already talked about that, so I'm not going to rehash that. From the Devadatta chapter, I think I read some of that for you too, where Shakyamuni in the Lotus Sutra identifies these realms as they will not fall into the realms of hell or to the states of hungry ghosts or animals, but will be born in the presence of Buddhas. That's the moment to moment. When you're born, this choice of word, this translation, isn't born in the Western sense of a baby coming out of a womb. It's born of the next moment. Remember? Birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. Moment to moment to moment to moment. A moment arises, abides, and dissolves. Birth, life, end, extinction, birth, death, moment. That's born. You can, in an instant, be born into Buddha-ness. How do you do that? With your mind. What's the tool to make that super easy for you to do? Myoho Renge Kyo. I dedicate my mind to the law. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. There it is. That's what we're doing. My phone just reminded me of something. Then we get into the lifespan chapter. However, O sons of a virtuous family, immeasurable, limitless, hundreds of thousands of myriads of kotis, of nayutas, of kalpas have passed since I actually attained Buddhahood. This chapter, or this section of the forward, we haven't even gotten into the meat of the book yet. I'm just prepping it. And I'm quoting from different aspects. And Nichiren identifies specifically this lifespan chapter as the moment when Shakyamuni gels this idea of Renge as being coexistent, if you will, with all life, the engine itself. And our human sentient minds have only been present here for a blip of the history of this engine of life. And yet we can perceive the whole thing at once. When Shakyamuni has this drop the mic moment in the lifespan chapter, he's said it before. He's tried to get people to understand it before. But in the Lotus Sutra, in the lifespan chapter, he goes, okay, this is what you're thinking, and it's wrong. Buddha-ness has been here since time without beginning. It is concurrent with the universe. The only thing And it's been active. You can say, I've taught for thousands and thousands of years. I is an ownership that I question in the translations, which Shakyamuni is identifying Buddha-ness, the enlightened mind. And it's been here all along. It's not in the body of Siddhartha Gautama. He didn't suddenly discover something and now he's bequeathing it to everyone. That's how we're accustomed to thinking, right? In our database of life. No, what he's identifying is something a priori. It's in the engine itself. All you need do is wake up. Perceive it. It's already there. To Nichiren, this is the Renge moment where Shakyamuni is not tolerating, you're not getting this essential point anymore. In the first chapters of the Lotus Sutra, he's teaching you that this enlightenment exists and it's always, all the time, moment to moment, there. In the latter part of the Lotus Sutra, he's saying, by the way, you don't have to find it. You just need to awaken to it. You can do this by yourself. No one can do it for you, and you can't do it for anyone else. This is your responsibility. Wake up. And that activity he relates to the sentient mind as the perception of multitudes of potential. The realms, the 3,000 realms in a single thought moment, is just an example of how energy formations, your selection of how to perceive these potentials that are roiling and happening, it's all up to you. Suppose there were a man who ground 500,000 myriads of kotas, nayutas, incalculable, great, manifold cosmos into particles. I mean, these are numbers and ideas. Again, Shakyamuni's trying to break our attachment to, well, your universe, my universe. How many universes are there? There's a multiverse. How many? Stop thinking about quantifying. Start thinking about quality, function, activity. What is happening? While passing through 500,000 of myriads of kotas, of nayutas, of incalculable lands to the east, we'll give it a direction. He drops just a single particle that has everything in the universe in it. And in this way, he continues dropping particles as he goes eastward until they're all gone. Okay, has your mind been broken yet? How many particles? How far? How big? Oh, sons of virtuous family, what do you think about this? Can all the world's realms be calculated or not? Can one imagine all of these worlds, calculate and know their number or not? So here he's blowing apart the 3,000 realms, right? He's identifying that teaching, the 3,000 realms in a single thought moment, and he's saying, in reality, you can't calculate the potential and the number of manifestations possible, because the word possible is itself a limitation. It's just ongoing, moment to moment. Please get this. This is a momentum. This is an unstoppable, ungraspable process. Be in the process. Stop trying to own it, quantify it, put it in a box. Just be in it. Maitreya goes on to respond, so on and so forth. Suppose all these worlds, whether or not A particle was left in them, were reduced to particles, and each particle represents a kalpa. The period of time since I became a Buddha would exceed this by hundreds of thousands of myriads ago. Okay. Has he made the example well enough that trying to conceive where and how Buddha-ness came to be is an irrelevant question? That's what he's doing. He's saying, look, you guys have gone on for years thinking you can follow me and somehow by doing so, I will imbue you with Buddha-ness, that sometime, somewhere in the future, you'll be like me. And what he's saying is, Buddha is not me. Buddha is something you already have. It's integral to your existence. It's a priori. You just need to awaken your mind to that reality, that truth. I myself proclaim different names and lifespans in various places. Now he's talking about the expedient means. I've talked about myself in this era. I've talked about how I've taught those. But I'm just impersonating Buddha-ness. I'm availing you to the way Buddha works. But it's not me. This works throughout all energy potential sentient minds. Tathagata, as I say here, a word that speaks to the nature of Buddha-ness rather than the physical embodiment of Buddha-ness. Tathagata is the priori. It is Myoho Renge Kyo. There's a lot more here and a lot more quotes. Triple world definition from the one of the multipliers, right, of the three realms of the samsaric existence, which we transmigrate as a result of karma. The realm of desire, kamadhatu. I think that might be a typo. The world of ordinary consciousness accompanied by desires, right? Our samsaric engine of attachment, identification, database. 2, the realm of form, rupadhatu, in which desires have been eliminated, but the physical body remains. So just looking at the form aspect, formations, instantiating. And 3rd, the formless realm, the arupya dhatu, in which the physical body no longer exists. In other words, mind only. But the mind cannot exist without the apparatus of the body, right? We've talked about this many times. But these are just points of view. Tendai, when we encountered the documents of Tendai, Chiche, 6th century Common Era China, discussing these topics. Nagarjuna Vasubandhu. I will quote from documents that have translated ancient Chinese translations. This next section is The Great Calm Observation, Volume 1, Part 2, page 5. And I will hit on the discussions of the 3,000 realms, although here it's called a little different. Let's see if I can find it. The embodiment, all-inclusive, ways and means, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, there's 10 points he makes here. So, and I make comments within that quoted text. So my comment here, I'll let you read it. I just want to identify what he calls it here is interesting. Do. Origination. The main idea. Well, I'm boring you now. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. So, those that inquire cause that which is observed. Those that have attained the rank of 6 purified senses are able to fill the 3,000-fold spiritual realm with a single wonderful sound at will, are able to completely reach and then transmit the secret doctrine. When cultivating observations and inspiring and cultivating the revealed teaching, one does not inspire or cultivate the secret. The person that inspires influences from a former life attains and teaches the secret observation. Again, keeping in mind this moment to moment, leaving this life, entering this new life. This life is in these realms of hunger, animality, so on and so forth. In the next moment, with a sound, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, one awakens the Buddha in the mind, the experience. So that's former life, present life, future life. Moment to moment. Please understand this always as you read this ancient rhetoric, yeah? When Shakyamuni said that the true nature of enlightenment could only be understood by Buddhas, he was saying that until you yourself have attained the clear mind of emancipated perception of the true reality of all phenomena in the busy work of self-manifestation, formation, without intent, but with momentum, that this observation alone would immediately translate to equanimity and compassionate understanding of all otherness of samsaric reality. Without this penetrating knowledge experience, all other discussions occur in the very same realm or 3,000 realms of transmigration and therefore incomplete emancipation. To the unenlightened, this clarity would appear as some secret being kept away or out of reach, right? He continues, and so we'll read Tendai. Next chapter, Happiness in This World. This is from Nichiren's Go shows, yeah? And he speaks about the 3,000 realms. There is no true happiness for human beings other than chanting Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Why? Why? Because it's the very instantiation of enlightenment. The sutra reads, where living beings enjoy themselves at ease. How could this passage mean anything but the boundless joy of the law? Surely you are included among the living beings, where means Jambudvipa, and Japan lies within Jambudvipa, could enjoy themselves at ease means anything but that both our bodies and minds, lives and environments, are entities of the 3,000 realms in a single thought moment of life, and Buddhas of limitless joy. There is no true happiness other than upholding a resolute mind in the Myoho Renge Kyo, in the Lotus Sutra. This is what is meant by, quote, peace and security in their present existence and good circumstances in the future, moment to moment to moment. Though worldly troubles may arise, never let them disturb you. No one can avoid problems, not even sages or worthies. Samsara gonna samsara. Keep your mind about you. Keep your Buddha mind constantly in the fore. Not easy. This is why we train. This is why we practice. I'll share a little story with you and then we'll end for today. I used to work in technology, various technologies. There was a research firm I worked at. We used to research different fuel oils for power generation. We did work for contracts for the EPA and other things. Anyway, long story short, when you're working, especially for government agencies, even though you're a subcontractor, there's a tremendous focus on safety. Especially we're working around burners, boilers, big flames, probes and stuff. Lots of dangerous stuff. Gases, yeah. So we would have to have weekly, what we used to call tailgate meetings, safety meetings. Here's the safety gear. Here's what you do. You don't leave your brick building of equipment to go out into the test field without wearing gloves and a helmet and goggles and this protective equipment, right? You don't go out there in T-shirts and a pair of shorts. You have to be dressed a certain way. You have to use the equipment. And one day, and we used to write each other, if we'd see a violation, we'd write you up. And if you got enough write-ups, you'd be sanctioned. Yeah? Serious about safety. And one of the guys I was working in, a senior guy, something was happening with his furnace, and he just ran out there to take care of it. And I wrote him up. And he was very angry that I wrote him up. My burner was... And we had a meeting with the head honcho. And my statement to him, because he was upset, was the reason we have weekly meetings, the reason we discuss and we keep our safety hardware up to date, that we check it, that it's on our checklist weekly, daily. Do I have the gloves? Is there helmet? Is there fire extinguisher? Is there oxygen here? So on and so forth. The reason we do all of that, practice, isn't just so we can say we have safety procedures and we practice. It is for the habit forming so that when something happens, without thinking about it, we do the safety thing. It may take extra seconds, but your life is worth it. The practice is to do it without thinking. Same is true with Daimoku. Same is true with our Buddhist practice. We do it repeatedly over and over again so that when we're challenged in samsara, we default to Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Let me see this objectively. Don't let the subjective monkeys get their fingers into this. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, relax, calm, observation, right? And with that, I wish you the strongest practice. Remember always your Buddhahood. Course in the world as a bodhisattva. That's what it means. Take care of your health. Be kind to yourself. And I'll see you in the next one. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you. Like and subscribe. Thank you.